Here are the top stories for today, June 16, 2020. Cebu City reverts to enhanced community quarantine, while general community quarantine remains in Metro Manila. The DPWH creates a group to lead the construction of bicycle lanes in Metro Manila. A lawmaker defends the order for online sellers to register, saying this is for regulation and legitimizing business. And Malacanang considers imposing heavier taxes on Philippine offshore gaming operators rather than charge online businesses with taxes. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Our top story for today, Cebu is back to ECQ while Metro Manila remains under GCQ. Benj Bondoc will tell us more about this.
President Rodrigo Duterte has reverted Cebu City to enhanced community quarantine or ECQ until June 30. In a streamed meeting late Monday night, Health Secretary Francisco Duque III announced the new community quarantine classifications based on the recommendation of the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases.
Due to the increasing number of new cases and widespread community transmission in majority of barangays in the city, as well as the consistent case doubling time of less than 7 days, and significant increase in critical care utilization against critical care capacity, Cebu City shall be placed under enhanced community quarantine.
Talisay City in Cebu is placed under modified ECQ until June 30, while Metro Manila remains under general community quarantine. Other provinces placed under GCQ until June 30 are Cagayan, Isabela, Nueva Vizcaya, Quirino, Santiago City in Region 2, Aurora, Bataan, Bulacan, Tarlac, Olongapo City, Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, Rizal, Quezon, and Occidental Mindoro. Also placed under GCQ in the Visayas are Bohol, Cebu, Negros Oriental, Siquijor, Mandaue City, and Lapu-Lapu City, and Davao City and Zamboanga City in Mindanao. The rest of the country remains under modified general community quarantine or MGCQ until June 30. Meanwhile, President Duterte reminded the public to observe minimum health standards despite relaxed quarantine restrictions such as physical distancing, wearing of face masks, and regular hand washing.
The battle of sa COVID is not over. Sabi ko, nandyan pa yung germ na yan at hindi nawawala. I cannot say it's second wave because it is still increasing. Ngayon, kung lumabas talaga kayo, you run the risk of getting infected. Huwag ninyo kaming sisihin. Do not forget that we warned you about the grave consequences. Now, there's a pill, I hope it's true, na parang lalaban. And it can maybe, kill the... yun ang maganda. Pag yun ang dumating, pag available na, mag-order na ako ng, then I will distribute it. I will personally supervise the distribution. Ako mismo, I will supervise the distribution of the whatever there is para to guarantee that everybody gets a fair share of the medicines and the medical care.
Earlier, Duterte warned that the return to a stricter community quarantine is possible in areas with rising number of COVID-19 cases. Meanwhile, he found it heartening to see the rise in recoveries among the number of COVID-19 patients in the country. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Benj Bondoc.
President Duterte is appealing to the public to give him until the end of the week to allocate the funds for the purchase of transistor radios, which will be used for poor students in far-flung areas. Duterte is eyeing the purchase of transistor radios, which cost around 300 pesos to aid distance learning for students and teachers without access to television, cell phones, computers, and the internet. While it might not be possible to bring distance learning to all far-flung barangays, Duterte said the government will try.
We will try to come up with something in the next few days. Maybe before the end of the week, I would be able to look for the money. Wala na tayong pera ngayon. I would look for the money to buy transistor radios to be distributed all throughout the country.
Since the coronavirus disease or COVID-19 pandemic is expected to last until a vaccine is developed, Duterte said students should continue learning so as not to waste time. He has remained firm in his stand not to allow face-to-face classes unless a vaccine against COVID-19 is readily available.
Baka kung magtagal ito talaga, sayang ang panahon. Even without a face there, as long as you are really interested to learn.
Education Secretary Leonor Briones said they will closely monitor with the local government units to ensure that students obtain learning modules from their respective barangays. She said she had discussed with local officials the government's plan to utilize local radio stations to broadcast lessons for students.
I just talked with one of them, and at the regional level, the regional directors are also negotiating with the local radio stations so that we can reduce the cost.
The Department of Interior and Local Government vowed to investigate government officials who are allegedly involved in SAP anomalies. DILG Secretary Eduardo Año issued the warning amid the cases filed against local government officials for their alleged involvement in the mishandling of funds under the Social Amelioration Program. From the 452 complainants, Año said this has led to the probe on 649 suspects, 139 of which have already been filed at the Fiscal's office. 885 private individuals were arrested for various crimes such as hoarding, profiteering, and manipulation of prices. Año said these offenses translate to economic sabotage, especially when the country is reeling from the effects of the COVID-19 crisis. Meanwhile, unqualified SAP cash and recipients are still liable for unlawfully receiving the financial assistance at the expense of the poorest among the poor. DILG Undersecretary and spokesperson Jonathan Malaya said the return of the aid will not extinguish them from criminal liability. Here is an update on the status of our stranded OFWs. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said more than 50,000 overseas Filipino workers from various countries have been sent home since mid-May following their repatriation to the country. Roque said a total of 50,105 OFWs were sent back to their respective home provinces from May 15 to June 14 this year by planes, boat, and buses. More OFWs are expected to arrive in the coming weeks as the pandemic hit many businesses and industries worldwide. President Duterte earlier directed officials to expedite the process of sending repatriated OFWs home after many complained of being stuck in quarantine centers for more than 2 weeks. As of June 14, 764 locally stranded individuals who had camped outside the airport terminals had been sent to Villamor Air Base Elementary School and the Philippine State College of Aeronautics for temporary shelter. Some 379 have been given transport assistance, while stranded individuals were given sleeping kits, sanitary kits, and 2,000 pesos cash from the DSWD. Earlier, the government's newly launched Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program has been suspended so that authorities can focus on helping repatriated Filipino migrant workers and stranded people return to their hometowns. Meanwhile, Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. has asked Saudi Arabia's ambassador to ensure that OFWs affected by the coronavirus disease have access to health and support services in the kingdom. Locsin also assured the ambassador of continued cooperation with civil aviation authorities for the urgent repatriation of OFWs amid the limited flights between the Philippines and Saudi Arabia. Still to come, the DPWH creates a group to lead the construction of bicycle lanes in Metro Manila. A lawmaker defends the order for online sellers to register, saying this is for regulation and legitimizing business. More on this from the PNA Newsroom continues.
Alamin ang tamang paraan ng pag-ubo upang mapigilan ang paglaganap ng Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ugaliing magdala ng panyo o tissue. Kung uubo o babahing, takpan ang buong ilong at bibig gamit ang panyo o tissue. Kung walang dalang panyo o tissue, maaaring gamitin ang braso na pantakip. Kung nakararamdam na kailangan umubo o bumahing, agad na dumistansya sa mga tao sa paligid. Huwag dumura kung saan-saan, gumamit ng tissue at itapon sa basurahan. Ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at paggamit ng alcohol o hand sanitizer upang mamatay ang mikrobyo. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. For those who are biking to work or going to other places, the government is planning to put up additional bicycle lanes in Metro Manila very soon. In his 12th weekly report to Congress, President Duterte said the government has formed a team to prepare the design and construction of bicycle lanes in 7 prioritized road sections in Metro Manila. These are in EDSA, Quezon Avenue, Commonwealth Avenue, Rojas Boulevard, R10, C5, and Marcos Highway. Late last month, Interior Secretary Eduardo Año directed provincial governors, city, and municipal mayors to coordinate with neighboring local government units to connect bicycle lanes and establish a bicycle road network. Año said local governments must also ensure that all bicycle lanes are free from any obstruction to prevent any untoward road accidents. The Trade Department is already eyeing to impose price control on bikes now that sales are increasing. In other news, city buses can use 6 more routes in the Greater Manila area this week starting today, June 16. These are Route 14 from Ayala Avenue to Alabang, Route 15 from Ayala to Binyan, Laguna, and Route 27 from the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange or PITX to 13 Martires, Cavite. Another 3 routes will also be opened on Thursday, June 18. These are Route 23 from PITX to Sucat, Route 26 from PITX to Naik, and Route 30 from PITX to Cavite City. More government officials laud the passage of the anti-terror bill to protect the country from insurgency. They also defend the bill, saying it will not curtail the rights of the Filipinos. More on this from Marita Moaje.
Amid the call for the passage of the anti-terrorism bill, National Security Advisor Hermogenes Esperon said this bill does not infringe on civil and political rights.
Napakaraming safeguards na nandito. Unang-una sa Section 4, doon pa lang sa definition, sinabi lahat kung ano yung mga gawain na may tuturing na konektado sa terorismo. But in the end, ang sinabi sa Section 4 is, provided that terrorism as defined in this section, Section 4, shall not include advocacy, protest, dissent, stoppage of work, industrial or mass action, and other similar exercises of civil and political rights which are not intended to cause death or serious physical harm to a person, to endanger a person's life, or to create serious risk to public safety.
Meanwhile, the Anti-Money Laundering Council said amendments on the Philippines Human Security Act, which have been incorporated in the anti-terrorism bill, are necessary to address gaps in the country's anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing system. AMLAC said this is to prevent the country from being included in the gray list of a country with deficient financial system that makes it prone to risk of money laundering and terrorist financing, among others. It said the push for this proposed law is needed despite the pandemic because time is ticking. In other news, PNP Chief General Archie Gamboa assured that the proposed Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020 will not be a tool to curtail the rights of citizens as guaranteed by the 1987 Philippine Constitution. Gamboa said the measure mainly aims to strengthen the campaign against terrorism and not to silence government critics. He also allayed concerns that it could be abused by law enforcers and other implementing agencies, as safety nets already are in place. Gamboa maintained that only terrorists should fear the proposed anti-terror bill and not the law-abiding citizens. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Marita Muaje.
Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Salvador Panelo dismissed remarks that the decision on the cyber libel case against Rappler CEO Maria Ressa and former writer Reynaldo Santos Jr. leads to the death of press freedom. He maintains that this was a case of accountability on journalists who abuse their rights. More on this from Rom Dulfo.
The conviction of Rappler CEO Maria Ressa and former researcher writer Ray Santos Jr. over a libel case is a case of accountability, as Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Sal Panelo says. Panelo disagreed with opposition lawmakers who said their conviction is slowly killing press freedom. He reminded Ressa that the libel case against her and Santos was filed by a private person, businessman Wilfredo Keng. He said journalists should take to heart the wisdom imparted by the Supreme Court because freedom of the press is not absolute and ends when it is abused and transgresses the rights of others. Meanwhile, businessman Wilfredo Keng on Monday stood by his case against Rappler, saying he had asked Maria Ressa to correct false public accusations against him or to publish his side, but to no avail. Keng reiterated that he filed the case, which has languished for 3 years, in his capacity as a private individual. He said the conviction of Ressa and Santos vindicates him to an extent, especially that the damage against him has been done. In 2017, Keng filed cyber libel charges against the two for naming him in a 2012 report as having lent his sports utility vehicle for the use of then Chief Justice Renato Corona, who was then facing impeachment. Manila RTC Branch 46 Judge Raynelda Estacio Montesa sentenced Ressa and Santos to imprisonment ranging from 6 months and 1 day to 6 years. Ressa and Santos were ordered to pay Keng 400,000 pesos in moral and exemplary damages. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Rom Dulfo.
The Presidential Task Force on Media Security has expressed alarm over reports that investigators resolving the killing of Dumaguete City-based radio anchor Cornelio Rex Pepino received serious threats from some individuals in Negros Oriental. PTFOM's Executive Director Undersecretary Joel C. Egco said his office has been receiving reports of alleged obstruction by some local officials and the recent harassment on agents of the Bureau. Egco commended the PNP and the National Bureau of Investigation for their efforts in unmasking perpetrators and masterminds in the brutal killing of Pepino. Local media reports said 3 NBI agents experienced serious threats and surveillance separately following the investigation of Pepino's murder. Egco reiterated his warning to local officials not to obstruct the official inquiry into the murder of Pepino. Pepino was a veteran commentator of DYMD Energy FM 93.7 and known critic of local politicians. He was killed execution style on May 5th, 2020. And in our business news, a leader of the House of Representatives clarifies that the registration of an online business is for regulation purposes and does not mean it will automatically be taxed. Valenzuela Representative Wes Gatchalian said the regulatory action should not be taken as a barrier to business, but an opportunity for growth in terms of access to government programs and incentives. House Ways and Means Committee Chair Joey Sarte Salceda has called on the Department of Trade and Industry and the Bureau of Internal Revenue to encourage MSMEs that trade online to register and become part of the formal economy. Salceda said tax exemptions under the Barangay Micro Business Enterprises Law, the Train Law, and the Customs Modernization and Tariff Act should be imposed so that online MSMEs can become part of the country's development. Salceda estimated that there are 1 million informal MSMEs doing businesses online. The city government of Davao is offering emergency employment opportunities to help residents cope up with the pandemic. Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte Carpio said the city government is targeting about 42,000 individuals for the Work for Davao Emergency Employment Project. Under the project, each worker would be paid 396 pesos per day for up to 10 days. The city government will also offer educational assistance to students coming from families whose income have significantly declined due to the pandemic. Since the start of the community quarantine in March, over 10,000 business establishments in the Davao region have ceased operations as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Tricycles in Dumaguete City are now allowed to have 2 passengers per unit amid prohibitions on public transport during quarantine. More on this from Janice Cabe.
Some drivers and operators of motor cabs for hire in Dumaguete City lifted their transport strike on Monday following an agreement with authorities regarding the number of allowable passengers per unit. In a meeting between Mayor Felipe Antonio Remolyo, the Highway Patrol Group, and the tricycle drivers at the City Hall, they agreed to allow 2 passengers in tricycles instead of 1. However, operators and drivers would conform to certain requirements such as wearing of face masks and observing safe physical distancing. Remolyo said the city is not going against prohibitions on public transport but simply innovating it to avoid disenfranchisement of the operators and drivers. Meanwhile, a BICOL party list representative Elizalde Co has appealed to the national government to allow the resumption of provincial bus services to bring home stranded Filipinos. Co on Monday implored the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases and the LGUs to discuss, agree, and lay down guidelines for bus operators and commuters. He said test clearances for COVID-19 and adherence to quarantine requirements will be imperative for all passengers, bus drivers, and crew. While inconvenient, Co said requiring passengers to undergo quarantine if LGUs mandate it is better than not being allowed to go home at all. In other news, the Mactan Cebu International Airport has released the new guidelines for domestic flight passengers who will come to Cebu via the MCIA. Under the new guidelines, overseas Filipino workers or returning overseas Filipino workers need to present documents such as the passport, quarantine certificate, and any valid identification card as proof of residence. Locally stranded individuals also need to present a medical certificate from where they were stranded and a letter of confirmation from the LGU of destination under Cebu, except Cebu City, Lapu-Lapu, and Mandaue. Travel authority from Joint Task Force COVID Shield is also needed for every locally stranded individual who would fly to Cebu via MCIA. The MCIA reiterated the government's prohibition against travel for leisure purposes for all persons who are below 21 years old, elderlies who are 60 years old and above, and pregnant women. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Janice Cave.
Up next, Malacanang considers imposing heavier taxes on Philippine offshore gaming operators rather than charge online businesses with taxes. And several national athletes receive their full monthly stipend amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
Malacanang is not discounting the possibility that heavier taxes could be imposed on Philippine offshore gaming operators or POGOs instead of small-time online sellers. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said President Rodrigo Duterte would first want to ensure that POGOs and their service providers pay their tax liabilities before they are allowed to operate. In a statement, Senate Majority Leader Juan Miguel Zubiri proposed to heavily impose taxes on POGOs, stressing that it was insensitive and unnecessary to impose taxes on online sellers. Roque recognized the plight of online sellers but noted that such is being done since the previous administration under former BIR Commissioner Kim Henares. In a memorandum circular issued on June 10, the BIR asked all persons doing online businesses to ensure that their businesses are registered and that they are tax compliant. The BIR is targeting the collection of at least 2 billion pesos a month from POGOs. Two officers of the Communist Party of the Philippines New People's Army in Central Negros have voluntarily surrendered to government troops. The Army 62nd Infantry Battalion, based in Negros Occidental, identified the former rebels as Ka Dodong, political instructor of the NPA's SDG platoon, Central Negros 2, and medical officer Ka Lara. The couple decided to surrender when they learned about the Enhanced Comprehensive Local Integration Program, or ECLIP, and also because of their desire to live a peaceful life with their child. The 62 IB said in its report that the couple related the hardships, abuses, and corruption they experienced inside the NPA organization that prompted them to surrender. The battalion assured the rebel returnees that they will be given financial support, legal assistance, and livelihood as part of their ECLIP benefits. In Agusan del Norte, 21 former members of the NPA received financial livelihood assistance from the government through the ECLIP. Each of the former rebels received 86,000 pesos as immediate livelihood and reintegration assistance, as well as hygiene kits from the Department of Health Region 13. 402nd Brigade Commander Maurito Likudin underscored the importance of the ECLIP program in encouraging NPA members to surrender. He said the program is a venue for the rebels to have an option other than fight it out with the government. In our foreign news, South Korean President Moon Jae-in on Monday urged North Korea not to stop the peace process between the two countries. In a first official reaction to recent rhetoric from the North, Moon said current inter-Korean relations, which have overcome a long-time severance and war, must not stop again. He suggested the two sides push for joint projects that they can decide among themselves for the sake of the Korean Peninsula. Moon's comments came after Kim Yo-jong, sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, threatened military action against South Korea last Saturday. Kim announced a cutting of ties with South Korean officials and said the country would soon take further measures which she implied would be military in nature. Pyongyang is enraged about Seoul's failure to stop anti-Pyongyang propaganda leaflets from being sent across the border. In sports, national athletes from the Cordillera region have received their full allowance from the Philippine Sports Commission. Athletes expressed elation as their expected monthly allowance that was supposed to be cut in half was still received in full. The PSC earlier announced that the monthly stipend of national athletes will be cut in half starting this month as a cost-cutting measure, with the bulk of their budget used to help government efforts to stop the spread of COVID-19. The Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation, or PAGCOR, had stopped giving money to the PSC when all gaming had ceased. But athletes remained optimistic that they would still get what has been allotted for them, especially after a record-breaking performance in the SEA Games. Senator Christopher Lawrence Bongo this week suggested that the PSC just cut the monthly allowance but give the full retroactively once the PAGCOR resumes operation and gives its share to the sports body. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. Cebu City reverts to enhanced community quarantine, while general community quarantine remains in Metro Manila. The DPWH creates a group to lead the construction of bicycle lanes in Metro Manila. A lawmaker defends the order for online sellers to register, saying this is for regulation and legitimizing business. And Malacanang considers imposing heavier taxes on Philippine offshore gaming operators rather than charge online businesses with taxes. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check out more news content, check our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo. Good day and stay safe, everyone.